On this 41st anniversary of the Supreme Court's historic Roe v. Wade decision, the bitter cold and the blowing snow not keeping protesters off the National Mall today for the annual March for Life. Today's march takes place on the heels of a year when some 24 states passed 53 restrictive abortion laws. It's a whopping 205 laws in just the last 3 years, which is more, for perspective here, than all the restrictive laws passed in the last decade. And as the Republican National Committee holds its winter meeting today in D.C., Chair Reince Priebus said, quote, "We thought it only fitting our members attend the march," end quote. Joining me now to discuss, Ilyse Hogue, president of NARAL Pro-Choice America, which just last week came out with a new report on reproductive rights. Ilyse, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
You know, Rick Santorum, House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, they're going to be there along with a handful of other congressmen. Organizers say they're not going to give these long speeches. They're going to try to involve social media a little bit more. They even support for the Pope. They're trying to get hip, I guess. I mean, what's the impact of the March for Life? Does it have one?
Well, I mean, I think it's clear that they felt the need to cater to this extreme piece of their base. And in fact, if you can read the tea leaves, 2014 is going to be more of the same in terms of catering to that base. The good news is that we know that the majority of Americans support the rights enshrined by Roe and are actually sick of our political debate being dominated by what most people accept as settled law. We'd like to have a conversation about a real women's agenda that supports women throughout our lifetime, both when we are not ready to be parents, but also when we are, and that's nowhere on the GOP's agenda.
How do you reconcile that all these laws are getting passed at the state level, yet the public sentiment is what it is?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I think what we're seeing is the culmination of 3 decades of strategy by the anti-choice minority. They were very savvy about taking over state houses, leveraging redistricting to their benefit in the House of Representatives, and definitely paying attention to judicial nominees. The good news is 70% of Americans actually support the rights enshrined in Roe, and we're starting to see the momentum shift back in our direction. We saw it in 2013 with the Virginia governor's race, where 20% of voters said that they voted for McAuliffe on this issue. We saw it in Albuquerque, where we soundly defeated the first municipal ballot initiative on an abortion ban. And I think we're going to see more of that pro-choice majority mobilizing in 2014.
You know, it's funny, but the Republicans are sort of changing their rhetorical angle on this, and I just want to get to a couple things and then put a question to you. The president did release a statement saying on this anniversary, quote, "We recommit ourselves to the decision's guiding principle that every woman should be able to make her own choices about her body and her health," end quote. Meanwhile, this debate over women's rights has taken on even greater meaning in the midterms. You just touched on it. There are red state Democrats up for re-election. They're hoping that that success in Virginia that you talked about will come true again this coming November. Meanwhile, Republicans, they're trying to reframe this debate, at least, right? They want to make it an economic issue, even target Obamacare and make it, you know, financial, and so it doesn't look like it's a social issue. Is this a concern in terms of this little shift in how they talk about it?
No, I actually, you know, look, we agree. Reproductive freedom is ground zero for women's ability to determine our economic security. There is nowhere in the world that you see a place that doesn't have access for women to family planning that does well on any other socioeconomic factor. And women in this country experience it the same. The GOP is wildly out of step. I said this morning in Politico, they're not anti-abortion. They are anti-women living any kind of life that is different from the one that they determine. That's why they vote against contraception. That's why they vote against comprehensive sex ed. If they were really anti-abortion, they would embrace all of the preventative measures and education that we know give women power to make decisions about our reproductive freedom. We believe that when we expose the fact that they also vote against helping low-income women who are parents. In fact, Governor John Kasich took money out of temporary assistance for needy families and moved it into fake clinics that lie to women, that we'll see that not only are they out of step on these issues, but they're out of step on the real economics that allow women to get ahead in this country.
It is. The one thing that is amazing through all this, Ilyse, and thanks for the insight, is that 41 years later, it's still a huge battleground issue, and a lot of people had hoped that it wasn't. NARAL President Ilyse Hogue, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.